One of the hard things about being the cool girl at work is that you cannot complain about your coworkers. Thank you for this comment because I actually want to expand on this. So in the outdoor industry, a lot of these companies, they're small rafting companies, they're, mom and pop, whatever. They don't have an HR department. They don't have even like an accounting department. Like they don't have it's literally just the owner, who usually used to be a guy, usually a man, usually a very toxically masculine man, a terrifying man who also hits on all the women raft guides who are half his age. Across the board, that is usually the boss. But in this particular incident, and y'all can go back to the story that I'm talking about, I actually worked for a woman. I worked for an awesome woman. I loved working for her, and that's one of the reasons why I applied to her company, is because it was run by a woman. She was like a little bit older than me, maybe in her 30s. She looked eyeball to eyeball to men. She was not afraid of men, but she was not like a toxically masculine woman the way I was, because I was trying to just fit in and get by. But she was also the boss, so she had power, right? But I couldn't tell her what was going on. I don't even think I knew that what these guys were doing was wrong. I mean, not only did they, write like Mel loves, Mad River, dick on the back of my calves after finding out that I hooked up with another raft guide at a competing company. They also used to, what else they do? They lock me in the porta potty, and they'd use like cam straps to lock me in. There's no getting out. And then they would throw rocks at it as hard as they could, which I don't know if you've been inside of a porta potty when someone throws something at it, but it is unbelievably loud. And then they would drop rocks down the pipe so that the blue water full of crap, right? Like literal crap, would splash and hit my butt. What else did they do? I'll probably think of it as I keep talking. But I never had an older brother. I grew up in a house with a single mom, an older sister, and even a female dog, Fifi Marie Hamlet. Love you, Fifi. Oh, I miss you. The only man in my life was my dad, and he was one of the reasons why I have so much trauma. And I never saw him. So I was a tomboy. I related to men more than women. I could relate to women in terms of being, terrified of men. But this was back when I hated pink. I certainly wouldn't be going to watch Barbie. By the way, I will watch that as soon as I can, but it's hard to find a theater that has it in English here. I hated anything feminine. I was a toxically masculine feminist. I associated anything female as weak, which is why I wanted to be one of the boys. I realized now that I absolutely went down that path, not only for my career in the outdoors, but as almost like an avatar I stepped into, because I had been traumatized by so many men in my childhood. Actually traumatized, preyed upon, groomed, that the way that I could tap into strength was to be as manly as possible and prove to all men, don't mess with me. And they didn't really, and they didn't in terms of schmegely. My coworkers, they respected me as like a guy, but they saw me as a little sister, and they treated me as such. And then when I dared to hook up with someone, then comes like the slut shaming and all that other stuff. Now I'm just not one of the boys anymore. Now I have othered myself, which is the trap that a lot of tomboys fall into, and a lot of cool girls. Not in terms of dating, but in terms of cool, like you're cool girl with like the guy group. You were let into the boys' clubhouse. You were the one girl picked. But in order to stay in the clubhouse, you have to sacrifice your integrity and your self-respect. And so even if I had known that what they were doing was really messed up, I never would have told on them, because I lived in my truck in a parking lot. Like, not even lying, y'all. This is the way I lived. But this, again, was an upgrade. During this particular story, I was living in a Nissan Pathfinder, so I had even less space. I just moved to this town. It's a little mountain town. I'm outnumbered 10 to 1. 10 men to every one woman. I had to have guy friends. And I really cared about these guys. And this is how I realized, before it all clicked, that men are acting, they're performing. Because the friend of mine that I mentioned in this other video that ended up joining my husband's men's group, they're actually in the men's group while I made that last video, coincidentally. Whenever we would do trips, like overnight trips, where we had to share a tent together, we would talk so deep, like he would really open up to me. He would talk to me in a way that he wouldn't talk to the other guys. And that's when I was like, wow, I kind of have a unique position here, because he is showing a softer side in front of me that he will never show in front of them. And he's actually like a good dude. But when he's around them, especially one particular guy, and this is why all it takes is one man. One man will influence that whole group if they are performing for him. I'm not blaming it all on that one man because all of those men are accountable. But what I am saying is one toxically masculine misogynist can literally, make himself the alpha and affect the whole group. So I had no friends in this town other than these men. We worked 14-hour days. Sometimes we'd have trips on the river from 6 a.m. until 7 at night. And then we'd have to come and unload the boats and do all this crap. All we did was work. So if I had told on these guys, I would have lost my whole family, my whole community. With the exception of one woman, I'm smart enough to always find at least one woman friend everywhere I went. No matter what jobs I was working, I had at least one close female friend because I knew you are screwed if you didn't have women in your life, if you're a woman. And also, those men would have made my life hell. It would have ruined every single day on the river. And these jobs are seasonal. I assumed I'd probably only be there for one season because I was jumping from state to state each, 1 year New Mexico, 1 year Washington, 1 year Wyoming. I was all over the place because, I'm a committophobe, or I was. So for self-preservation, I played the game. But what I regret now, I don't regret. I don't regret. I learn lessons and I take them in and I become a better person from those lessons. But if I'd known then what I know now, I would not have laughed at any of their jokes. I would have also literally gotten physical with them and I would have called them on their crap. I would stood up to them more. Instead of letting them dominate me like a little sister, I would have been their big sister. Because there was one other woman in that company who was older than me and had gray hair. And she was like, whoa! She never let them talk that way. They never pulled that stuff on her. But she had, a life outside of the drafting company. And she also didn't need to be their friend. So I say all this to say, the cool girl pays a big price. And that price is your dignity. And the cool girl can not only not be a woman in the presence of these men if they're very toxically masculine and performing masculinity, you can't even be a human. It ain't worth it. Don't do it. And again, if you want to read more of the story and how I also took those lessons that I learned on the river to the film industry, when I moved to New York, I worked in a whole new outdoor man world. And then comedy, right? That's another man world. All my jobs are around men. Some of the most toxic men I've ever met. And how I learned to deal with them differently without losing myself. Don't be the cool girl, because the cool girl is a liar. Just want to remind you, if you like this video and you want more content like this, subscribe, comment, tell me what the kind of videos you like. I'm going to do more long form stuff just for YouTube soon, so let me know.